Yo, what's going on, guys? Crispy Flakes here. Welcome to Extra Crispy. That's my fucking team, bro. This is my team, bro, right here, man. It's not really my team because it was X before I was alive, bro. But for today's video, man, we got a video titled The Truth About the Bad Boys 1980s Detroit Pistons. So I was actually born in the year 1992. So like I said, man, I was not really alive at all at this time. But I've heard stories of the Bad Boys, guys. I got the Bad Boys hat that I wear on the daily. Probably a bit too often. Probably time for a new hat, actually, man. But yeah, it's a video by Andy Hoops right here. Look through his channel description below. He's going to tell us the truth about one of the most hated teams in NBA history. No, Bill Laimbeer, bro. Oh, my God. People hated this man, but he was a baller, bro.
The Bad Boy Pistons.
Bad Boy
One
Pistons.
One of the most iconic teams ever in arguably the most iconic era in NBA history. The mid to late 1980s were a great time for watching basketball. The peak of Larry Bird and Magic Johnson's dominance, and the rise of a young superstar by the name of Michael Jordan. The NBA's popularity skyrocketed during this time, and a lot of that was because of those three players. But then we had the...
Bro, is that Luke Kennard? Bro, that's Luke Kennard, man! Oh my God, I know he played in the 80s!
Players.
Damn, dude!
But then we had the Pistons, a team that we look back on today in glory and fame.
Recent rookie.
But at that time, they were not popular outside of Detroit. In fact, they were the most hated team in the league by far, despite being so good. Well, being so good is mainly why people hated them.
You love them, man. You love to hate them, bro.
Rugged physical style of play, and how they were outplaying more of the popular teams
in
the league.
Get down!
Out of every episode of ESPN's 30 for 30 series, I'd say the one featuring the Bad Boy Pistons was by far their best episode, and I certainly recommend checking it out. Anyway, how's it going, folks? My name's Andy, and today we're gonna go back in time and take a look at the Bad Boy Pistons. What made them so good, and how were they perceived around the NBA?
Fear, man.
In 1981, the Detroit Pistons were awful. They won 16 games and then 21 games in back-to-back seasons.
Feels like now.
They were the worst team in the entire NBA.
Feels like now.
On top of that, the team wasn't very profitable either, and the owners were losing money fast.
It feels like now.
The Pistons, previously in Fort Wayne, got
Okay, who's gonna win now? Who's gonna win, man? Current Detroit Pistons or this squad right here? I might take this squad. I think this dude in the back like probably dunk on Blake Griffin.
Sold in the 1970s and moved to different arenas in different parts of the city multiple times, trying to find some way to generate interest in the team. It was a rough time, and along with Detroit's declining automobile industry, many investors were pulling their money out of the city.
It's doing better,
As a result, the entire city was going in a downward spiral. However, in the 1981 draft, they were able to get the number 2 pick, the pick that they used to draft Isaiah Thomas, a 6'1" point guard from Indiana. The acquisition of Thomas would be the beginning of a brand new era. He embraced the city of Detroit and became the face of the franchise in the next few years, but not yet. In the middle of his rookie season, the Pistons also acquired Bill Laimbeer, a tough physical center.
Did you guys know that Bill Laimbeer, that like for being like as rich as he was and stuff, he was still not richer than his dad. His dad was like owned, I think, like an oil company or something like that. It was like a billionaire or something like that. Man, I always thought that was really interesting. That Bill Laimbeer, like having all that money and stuff, still was not like the rich one in his family.
Who got a lot of flack for his playstyle.
My father told me that.
Some would say he was too aggressive, hitting his opponents who drove to the rim as hard as he could. And over the years, his physicality would be the center of controversy. Also in the same season, they acquired the microwave, Vinnie Johnson, a sixth-man dynamo, one of the greatest bench players of all time. But it wasn't until they signed Chuck Daly as their new head coach in 1983 when things started to ramp up quickly.
You might say when they got Chuck Daly, they started to win on the daily. I'm not gonna continue this video.
Thomas and Laimbeer would be the foundation of the Pistons' toughness and attitude. The team was still being led by Kelly Tripucka, an all-star and the leading scorer on the team. Funny enough, the Pistons in 1984 and 1985, they were much different than the version we know them as today. In 1984, the team had the best offensive rating in the league and played at an absurd pace, the 5th fastest pace in the NBA. Led by Kelly Tripucka and Isaiah Thomas, they were kinda like a worse version of the Showtime Lakers. Defensively, this team was not that good, consistently finishing in the bottom half of the league in defensive rating. As a result, they could not make it very far in the playoffs. However, by 1986, the entire team went through a huge transformation. They drafted Joe Dumars a year earlier in the 1985 draft, and he showed a lot of promise. His defense made him stand out above the rest, and the organization felt like his talents fit the team's identity a lot better. So by the end of 1986, the Pistons felt comfortable trading away Kelly Tripucka. In return, they received perennial All-Star and perennial 30 points per game scorer Adrian Dantley. This was the biggest trade they ever made, because Dantley was that go-to scorer they were desperately missing. A guy who you could just throw the ball to and get you a bucket.
That was the most weakest ass defense I ever saw in my... Look at this! Look at this!
The biggest trade they ever made,
Friggin'
because Dantley was that go-to scorer they were desperately missing. A guy who you could just throw the ball to and get you a bucket. They also picked up Dennis Rodman in the later part of the 1986 draft. Turns out, he would be one of the most unique players of all time and a perfect fit for the team too.
That's the worm.
They also added some more role players like Rick Mahorn, a bruising backup power forward. So when Bill Laimbeer sits out for a break, Mahorn could come in and continue knocking the hell out of anyone driving to the rim. Yeah. John Salley was another key addition to the team, and probably the most likable player on the team. And so this new look Pistons team was formed, and they were ready for a resurgence. And it happened right away. In the 1986-87 season, the Pistons would win 52 games.
Not a bad start.
They would finish with the 5th best defense, much better than their previous
iterations. I love the logo. They would grab
the 3rd seed in the Eastern Conference and make it all the way to the conference finals. Unfortunately, after a tough 7-game series, they would eventually fall to the Celtics. This was the series where Isaiah made that huge turnover.
Yeah, the steal. Larry steals the ball.
This iconic play call is something that most of us have heard before, and it lost them Game 5. Had the Pistons won that game, they'd probably take the series. You add on the physicality of the Pistons' playstyle to the point where it looked like they were trying to purposely knock out other players.
God damn.
It was kind of rough. Laimbeer was the biggest culprit, and over the years, he had multiple run-ins with other stars like Bird and Jordan. Speaking of Jordan, the Pistons would defeat the Bulls in 3 straight years from 1988 to 1990.
They all attacking him, man!
They would employ what they called the Jordan rules. According to Isaiah, it was pretty straightforward. The strategy was to, quote, to play him tough, to physically challenge him, and to vary its defenses so as to try to throw him off balance. Jordan made it publicly known that he did not like the Pistons and the way they played the game. He said, the dirty play and the flagrant fouls and the unsportsmanlike conduct,
shut up, Jordan.
That will be eliminated from the game with them gone.
Shut up, bro. Come on, man. Crying out there. Damn, cry more than LeBron.
We don't go out and try to hurt people and dirty up the game. You never lose respect for the champions, but I haven't agreed with the methods they've used. I think people are happy the game will get back to a clean game.
Freaking jumped on the monster.
Isaiah responded, people will look back at this team and say, we were one of the greatest teams to play basketball. We were great champions. He should be classier than to talk like that. And today, both Jordan and Thomas were kinda true. When we look back at the Pistons, it's a combination of both. We know they're one of the greatest teams of all time, one of the greatest champions of all time, but their physicality was a bit over the top. I'm sure we can all agree to that. But the hatred for the Pistons extended beyond that too. It wasn't just from the players or fans, but also from other front offices and other organizations in general. They were so unpopular that everybody wanted to see them lose. In the 1988 finals, they would lose another tough 7-game series.
Greatest day of everybody NBA fans' life right there, man.
In Game 6, the refs called a phantom foul on Bill Laimbeer at the end of the game. He barely touched Kareem, and from the way the rest of the game was called, there was no way this was a foul. But the ref called it a foul. Kareem hit 2 free throws, and the game was over. This saved the Lakers from elimination, and they would go on to win Game 7. Afterwards, the players felt like they were robbed. They believed that this was a ploy by the NBA because they did not want the Pistons to win the championship and be the face of the league. Years later, Lakers coach Pat Riley even mentioned in his book that there was no foul on Kareem. And it was a phantom call that won the Lakers the championship.
How y'all feel about that, Laker Nation?
In the following year, there was some drama surrounding the Pistons, but this time it was in their own locker room. Adrian Dantley had been the leading scorer on the team, but he never fit in with the team's culture.
I don't like them short shorts, man. I think it's kind of suspicious right there, bro. I'm just saying, man.
He wasn't a good defender, and he would regularly complain if he didn't get enough shots. He would also get frustrated with coach Chuck Daly because now at the end of games, he would get benched for the younger Dennis Rodman, a more versatile defender. So as you can guess, he was quite unhappy and would eventually get traded. But at the end of the day, this trade worked out better for the team. The Pistons got back Mark Aguirre, another lethal scorer, but he wasn't a ball stopper like Dantley was. And after the trade, they saw immediate success. In the 1988-89 season, they won a staggering 63 games. Up until then, that was the most in franchise history. They swept the Lakers in the 1989 finals, capturing their first ever NBA championship. Then in 1990, they would defeat the Portland Trail Blazers in 5 games and win back-to-back. What separated the Pistons from other contenders was that their defensive identity was something else. Both Thomas and Dumars were by far the greatest defensive backcourt the NBA has ever seen. And it was incredible because they were 2 small guards, standing at 6'1" and 6'3".
Don't matter, it's all hard. It's all hard in the end of the day.
It was very uncommon back then to see perimeter defense played like that. The aggressive trapping and blitzing all the way at the 3-point line. It's very common nowadays, but back then it was so rare to see. It was almost impossible for other guards to get by them. Double teaming or trapping players from that far out was unheard of. Jordan even said that Dumars was the greatest defender he ever played against. On top of that, they also had Dennis Rodman, who was the most versatile defender we've ever seen. Nobody could guard everyone from point guards to centers, but Rodman was pretty damn close. He was way ahead of his time. If you look at every championship team after the Pistons, most teams now have at least one amazing versatile defender. The Pistons started this trend, and that defense-first mentality carried them along the way. Unfortunately for them, they would lose in 1991 to the Bulls. This officially marked the end of the Bad Boys era, as everyone got older and started to regress. A few years later, everyone either retired or got traded. In Isaiah Thomas's case, a torn Achilles in 1994 ended his career sooner than expected. Eventually, the Bad Boy Pistons had 3 players become future Hall of Famers: Thomas, Dumars, and Rodman. All of them had great careers. In an era dominated by superstars like Bird, Magic, and Jordan, the Pistons won in their own way, despite everyone rooting against them.
Bro, I love Bill Embier's jump shot,
Anyway,
man.
That's all, folks. That sums up the story of the Bad Boy Pistons. Let me know your thoughts in the comments about this era and the players of that time.
I mean, this was a good video and everything like that, but really focused on, I mean, obviously like the defense stuff like that, but focus on a lot of the negatives. Then all the bad things about the Bad Boys. There's a lot of great things about them, man. A lot of winning out there. Just, I don't know. Like I said, my Pistons is the 2004 Pistons. That's the ones I know and love. But I do know and I respect that the idea of bad boy basketball came from this era and just what they did defensively. So, yeah, very good video. I really did enjoy this. And like I said, man, at the end of the day, it's basketball. I know people kind of get really passionate about something like that. I'm obviously passionate about it. But, you know, I just love the league so much. So, I love rivalries out there. It's just always a good time. That's just how I am, man.